Hey guys, Everseen here. Today I've got a build guide for the Exploding Stampede Hammer the Gods Bleed build I've been playing in Softcore SSF. The main components are going to be using Stampede for these beautiful explosions for clear, and using Hammer the Gods to one-shot almost everything that has less than like 1.5 million HP at its current power. This damage number will only go up as I've got lots of room to grow on the build. I'm currently only level 85 and still trying to piece together doing Giant's Blood tech so that I can actually progress to the highest tier maps. An important thing to note is I may pivot to Ignite since Armor Explosion converts 100% of physical damage to fire damage. This way it's easy to scale both the Hammer and Stampede to do the same damage type. The only thing about switching to Ignite that I'm not a fan of is that the magnitude of Ignite isn't easily scalable on the passive tree in comparison to Bleed magnitude. Alright, so let's go over some pros and cons of the build. Some of the pros were that the progression was easy. Since Cruel difficulty, I was one-shotting all of the bosses until now where I'm at T14, 15 maps and still one-shotting every boss, every rare. The build is tanky. Build has decent mitigation and recovery. Could have better life regeneration in my current setup, but that's kind of what I'm working into. We also use block chance since Stampede will charge with your shield, blocking incoming hits in front of your character in the Giant's Blood setup. The clear. So the clear is decent. It is not by any means perfect, but it is probably the best clearing that you can get for a Titan currently. And yeah, that is using the Stampede setup with Armor Explosion and Devastate to get these huge explosions. Alright, so let's go over the cons. So the build is very slow at first, up until about Act 2, and then after Act 2 you can pretty much kind of breeze through the whole game. Since leveling this build on early access release, there have been some tweaks to the progression for warriors, so your experience should be easier. Another con is getting surrounded, so this is almost an instant death because our character in general is pretty slow. It attacks slow, it moves slow, so try not to overextend yourself in a huge pack of mobs. If you get slowed in any way, you'll drop like a fly, like getting chilled, or even having temp chains on you, you get slowed and you're dead. If you do get surrounded and need to escape, use Leap Slam to jump to safety. Along with the Holy Descent Support Gem, you will get lots of life regeneration from Consecrated Ground. Alright, now let's talk about the leveling. Personally, I've seen lots of people using Perfect Strike or Bone Shatter, this type of thing. I didn't go this route personally. It probably was better to go that way, but I just did my own thing and was just trying to learn different skills. So when I leveled, I did a complete stun build, so I wasn't really interested in any strikes because they didn't really provide stun build up that I wanted. So I used Rolling Slam until I got Sunder, and then I used both of them. I used Rolling Slam, and then I also used with Volcanic Fissure, placing as many fissures on the ground as possible before doing a slam. I was also doing Shockwave Totem with stun build-up support gems like Ruthless to get tons of stun on bosses throughout the campaign. Volcanic Fissure was supported with Rage, so I would build my Rage to 30, swinging away at bosses, having maybe 8, 10 fissures on the ground, while Shockwave Totem was detonating my fissures. I would then do a Rolling Slam to do lots of damage to bosses, or even a Sunder. Also, once I got Sunder, the fissures would do an insane amount of damage because Sunder hits like once, but then it has a bunch of shockwaves behind it, so it's like 4 or 5 hits, and multiply that on like 6 fissures and you're getting like 30 hits. Once you unlock Supercharged Slam, you swap Rolling Slam to that, and use Hammer the Gods as well for single target. I used Lacerate on Sunder to inflict bleed, and once the target was bleeding, I would charge a Supercharged Slam with the Bloodlust support to do tons of damage to the boss. And like I said, I leveled as a total stun build. I found it much easier to just stun all the campaign bosses and then have your damage window, and I only switched to fully doing ailments once I was done with the campaign. So also in the leveling portion, you'll see in a bunch of these clips that I'm using Seismic Cry. So if you read the description of Seismic Cry, it actually states that if you use this war cry to empower an attack on a stunned enemy, you'll actually get a guaranteed Aftershock. So in some of these clips, you can actually see Hammer the Gods doing like 2 and even 3 Aftershocks, which is like pretty much one-shotting the boss. So yeah, I've been getting basically 2 guaranteed Aftershocks on most of my Hammer of the Gods when I'm doing bossing in the campaign. So I'll leave a mobalytics guide so you guys can look for yourself on all the skills and the gems and all that stuff, but I'm going to just highlight a couple of things pretty much in the current setup and things that you should watch out for and probably not do or do. So Hammer of the Gods is our biggest damage hit, so we want to get as much physical damage as possible. Please do not use Brutality on this, since we want to take advantage of the extra fire damage from Infernal Cry. Brutality is pretty bait. Basically, what Brutality does is it stops you from doing elemental damage. So if you're using Infernal Cry to get, say, 100% extra damage as fire damage, and then you use Hammer of the Gods, you actually won't benefit from any of that fire damage. So Supercharged Slam is great when your opponent is stunned, but otherwise it's shit. Like, they'll move around, you can't hit it, or you're just completely standing still, channeling an ability, and then they hit you and you get one shot or whatever. So I used it when I was doing my stun build, so that's why I was saying it's super great for the campaign and all that. But once I'm in my ailments mode, I'm pretty much just using Hammer of the Gods, and that's it. And that's really all I need. But Supercharged Slam is an extra additional in case I do, say, stun with Hammer of the Gods on a big boss, then I could charge that up. But yeah, it is a very hard-hitting ability, but you do have to channel it quite a lot. So when I was using Supercharged Slam for my stuns, basically my combo was that I would get them stunned, and then I would Warcry, Hammer of the Gods, and then immediately queue up a Supercharged Slam so that while my Hammer of the Gods was about to hit, my Supercharged Slam would hit, and everything would burst like at the same time while the boss was pretty much standing still. So Stampede is going to be your main clear once you get into maps. This is what I transitioned to, maybe even around like tier 6, 7 maps is when I started actually transitioning to this. You could right out the gate, which is what I recommend because the explosions helped so much in the clear. This in combination with Armor Explosion and Devastate is really good for clear. Even on just a 4 link, I would use Armor Explosion, Devastate, and increased AoE. Focus on increasing the area of effect of all of your skills anyway, because Hammer benefits from it, all of your slams benefit from it, but you want to do this for better explosions. Basically, how Armor Explosion works is when it explodes on one enemy, if it does a chain reaction with another enemy, the bigger AoE that you have, the more things you're going to clear. Quality is also really good on Stampede since it gets 30% chance to do an Aftershock at 20 quality. Later on, you also want to support this with the Aftershock support to get 72% chance to deal an Aftershock in total, which is just double damage when you hit an Aftershock. So you get 30% from the quality of the gem, 20% from the support, and then 22% from the skill tree in combination with the 50% increased small passive nodes. So for Ascendancy points, to start, I went with Crushing Impacts and then Earthbreaker to get the Aftershocks. Getting an Aftershock on Hammer of the Gods was insane during the leveling portion. Basically, I had 18% from the passive tree and then the 20% from the Ascendancy, so I had 38% chance for an Aftershock on Hammer of the Gods. More often than not, I did hit an Aftershock, and it led me to 2-shotting bosses. Once I got into the bleed version of the build, I swapped to 50% increased effective passive skills and went for full empowered attack scaling on the passive tree. With all the empowered attack nodes, you can get 210% increased damage with empowered attacks, which was another huge multiplier for Hammer of the Gods. Another nice thing about 50% increased passive skills is that all of the 10% increased magnitude of bleed skills turned into 15%, which scaled our bleed nicely. So for your third and fourth set of Ascendancy points, it's really up to you what you want to do. I went for Crushing Blows first, and then I went for Health after. So I just wanted Crushing Blows ASAP because once you have this Ascendancy notable, it makes it so that you stun enemies who are primed for a stun, so it just makes it really easy to stun. And when we stun, we armor explode, so that's where we're getting these nice pro lifts. Basically, taking this Ascendancy point makes it so that our clear is actually able to work without building into any stun buildup whatsoever. Right, so now the next thing I want to go over is the passive skill tree. So I'll kind of explain through it just so it makes more sense, because I have 2 different trees here in Mobilytics. So you can see here is like my character leveling, and then Endgame, like kind of what you want to see. So right now I'm on the leveling tree, and like I said, I leveled with a fully done up stun build. So I wanted, obviously this stun build up, all of this stun build up, also this stuff, and then yeah. So basically the way I did it is out the gate, and I pathed like this. I went to melee, and I went over to sturdy metal. I think I went up here and grabbed 2-handed stuff, then I grabbed these couple of points, and then I continued onwards, and I went straight to Resolute Technique, because you definitely want to not miss when you're using, like, say, Thunder, or, sorry, not Thunder, Sunder, or Rolling Slam. And then I also got, like, all of this stuff. Breaking Armor was nice on a heavy stun. This in combination with, like, Hammer of the Gods Aftershocks were insane, because I was actually using Exploit Weakness, which basically the ability will consume the broken armor on the enemy and do 50% more damage. So it was consuming and then doing like an Aftershock and doing like way more damage. So yeah, so I've also been taking all these nodes, 20% increased melee damage, 20%, and then 50% increased melee damage. So that's in total 90% increased melee damage for damage against a stunned enemy. So this wheel, huge. I went into that. I think I went into this stun build-up node and wheel after this one. So this mace wheel is really good. You're getting 20% more damage against heavily stunned enemies. More in this game is multiplicative, increased is additive. So all these additive stats are getting multiplied by this 20%. So you're getting tons of damage for maces and also stun buildup. So this is basically the core of what I did at first. You also want to take this one to basically base your armor from equipment, also added to stun threshold. So this helps it so that you don't get stunned in the middle of your abilities. And then, yeah, from there, I was trying out some endurance charge stuff. I didn't like it. I definitely am still doing the stun buildup with the gain endurance charge because we're still going to path all the way over. And this is also for elemental ailment threshold and stun threshold. I just felt like it was decent. I hardly ever got stunned in the campaign, so that was awesome. And then, yeah, basically you just path over here, and then you go into this stun buildup, and then Perfect Opportunity, which is 30% increased stun buildup. Cool. But damage with hits is lucky against heavy stunned enemies. So this worked really, really good for these hits that I was doing because you're always going to do, with luck in PoE, basically, if you hit one low end and one high end attack, it'll always take the high end. So say you hit 30 and 70, it'll always take 70. So you're always going to do more damage. And with Hammer of the Gods, with such a wide range of damage, you're going to do like the maximum amount of damage that you could possibly do when you're hitting. So that was kind of, this is the outline of like when I was leveling. Not really too much more to it. I think you could add like quite a few more points to this, but like this is a very good outline for being able to do tons of damage. All right, so I figured we should go over the endgame version as well. I've got a tree here that outlines pretty much like all I want. I have like my current character, and then I have leveling, and then endgame, which is like pretty much what you want to see at the end. It's not perfect. You could probably remove some things. Like, for instance, one thing that I'm looking at is like Resolute Technique. Like, I don't think accuracy really matters that much for Stampede because once you do Armor Explosion on one mob, it chains to the rest of them. So you really just have to hit one mob, and there's so many that you're just going to hit one. So 3 points there. Could probably shove that elsewhere, you know what I mean? It's very relaxed. Like, this is in no way optimized. This is basically just the same pathing I had before. You know, I've got some damage. I've got some little stun build up and two-hand nodes. I've got all these empowered attack nodes, though, which is very important to look at. So I've got all these, and then also these help because it gives me aggravate bleeding on targets you hit with empowered attacks. So this is a nice cluster to have for bleed. But yeah, this is pretty much the basis of my bleed setup, is that I'm going to have like these bleed nodes, all of these bleed nodes now, and then I went for increased AoE, more bleed, and then also this attack wheel with blind. So one thing about blind in this game is it's really good against all these trash mobs that are going to be hitting you because they're just going to have less accuracy. So that's what blind does for anyone that doesn't know. It basically makes it so that you have less accuracy and your hits don't hit as often. So that's a really big plus for us. And the other thing too is that I was actually way over into here. So like I pathed like this, and then I went into this attack speed wheel, and then I was over here, and this was like helping me cap my chance to bleed along with like all of this stuff, right, for bleed. And that's pretty much like what I was rocking for a while. But we get 3%, 6%, 9%, and then say 15 there. And then over here we're getting 3, 6, and then another 10%. So we're getting basically 1% more attack speed plus blind. So, and you can also take another 3% here, but this gets scaled up with the increased passive nodes being bigger. I don't know why this isn't allocated, but yeah, it actually gets even more attack speed. So, and the blind. So it's really good to just be in this side of the tree anyway. We want to get all this attribute stuff and go for polymathy for more attributes for Giant's Blood. So like this is like a really good place to be in the tree, so that's why I pathed over here. So this is also really nice too because my Hammer of the Gods has like 8-second bleed duration. So for half of it, no matter what, it's going to aggravate, which basically does like 100% increased damage or something like that. So yeah, that's why I got out of all this crap. And yeah, like I am missing all this bleed stuff, but whatever, I just took it over here and got some more magnitude over here instead. So this is pretty much the final that I want to do. I think I have, yeah, like I still have some skill points left. This isn't really too crazy. Like I want to get into polymathy and then Giant's Blood and take more strength here. And then this armor to like fire damage is great. And then more life regen. And then I think that's going to be like all she wrote for passives. Like I don't really see anything else that's too crazy. I might go into a little bit of block chance and life gained on block because we are going to actually block while we're doing Stampede. So that's kind of another thing to just give you a little bit more sustain when you're doing maps, especially in these breaches, because I don't know about you guys, but that's what I've been dying in the most, just because there's way too many mobs. You do clear it like fine with Stampede, but every now and again you will get just like hit by something rogue and huge and it'll just one-shot you. Alrighty, so I figured we'd jump over into the game real quick too, and I'll just show you guys my gear, sort of what I've been prioritizing, what I've been trying to make better. So far right now, this weapon is the best I've been able to find in a while. I'm getting tons of fizz damage off of this weapon, like close to none attack speed, but I'm also getting +3 to level of melee gems. So +3 to level of melee gems is giving me a ass load of damage. Like it's actually ridiculous. Hammer of the Gods is level 22. So if I did a weapon swap right now, I have another fizz damage weapon that is basically the same amount of physical damage. And I was trying to screw around with the weapon swap. Didn't really like it that much. But anyway, I have two weapons that are basically comparable in damage. They're actually almost the same amount of fizz damage. But if I swap from this weapon to my other weapon, you can see my DPS goes up by like almost 4,000. So, and that's scaling all of my gems. So that's not even just Hammer of the Gods. That is also Supercharged Slam. That is also Earthquake. Earthquake doesn't really go up much because there's no physical damage supports. But anyway. So this weapon, really good, +3 level of skills. I can't stress how important this is. You could even take a little bit less of a fizz damage and more plus level of all melee skills, and it'd probably be higher DPS than the one that has more raw number physical damage. So when you're playing melee, you need a good weapon. If you don't have a good weapon, your build is going to be underperforming. So make sure you get something along the lines of this, or even just something with just a lot of percentage physical damage, kind of like this one here. This one has great attack speed, a little bit of leech too. Another thing too is anytime I've been doing upgrades with my gear, I've been valing the other pieces that I've been using. So a lot of my gear is actually corrupted anyway because I have just been chucking val orbs and stuff. So for my chest piece, I ended up getting the 3 runes, which is really nice. The next upgrade really is to start doing soul cores with max life. Once I can get my resistances in check a bit more. But yeah, so for right now, for gloves, my gloves are not that great. I get chaos resistance, though, from them, which is nice. I need to get more life, and I also kind of want attack speed on gloves. I think attack speed is probably, like, the best stat to get. These are okay, though. They give me rarity, some chaos, fire, res, so I just decided to keep them for now. You do want better than this, for sure. This Chaos Ring, I don't have life on this ring, which really sucks because it's triple resistance, so it's going to take me a bit to actually get an upgrade for this because obviously triple resistance is kind of hard to get. And then my helmet is actually pretty good. I wanted to do the double sockets, but I got 25% increased armor, so it's got 610 armor. It's basically a chest piece and a helmet, so, you know, really good life, good resistances. It's pretty much all you want on your helmet. There's not really anything else that you'd want other than armor, life, and resist. For the amulet, I just ended up hitting this with like pretty much a very high life roll, and then I exalted on strength, so I decided to keep it because this gives me 41 strength. I do want to definitely upgrade this, especially to a different base, but for now, this is kind of like what I'm using. And my other ring is just a simple ruby ring. It just gives decent life. It had a lot of increased rarity, so I decided to just throw this on, and the cold resistance was pretty good too, so I just left it. But yeah, the chest piece, decent. It's got 3 runes in it. You know, can't ask for better than this. It's got a nice armor percentage. Basically, you want like upwards of 1,000 to 1,500 armor on your chest piece as a minimum, especially when you're playing an armor-based character like a Titan. The life roll could be better. It needs, you know, better suffixes, but like 21 chaos res, it's pretty good. Right now I'm sitting at 58 chaos res, so that's actually really good for the current state of PoE2. I've also got everything capped except for chaos, so that's nice. Another thing too is I hit this belt. It also doesn't have a high tier life, but it has triple resistance, and they're all really high rolls. So I decided to keep this belt on. But yeah, I kind of want better. Basically, I just need to get better pieces with more life. Like this doesn't have life. The gloves don't have life really. The belt doesn't. The boots, they're just 30 MS boots. Like I just got these last night. They got, you know, decent life, it's okay, and then just the MS, and that's it. So once I get 30% increased movement speed with better life, better res suffixes, maybe I can drop, like, say, this ring or something for another ring. Anyway, I just need to push more life into my gear is kind of where I'm at right now. And then, of course, once I get Giant's Blood going, I do have a shield here that I'm going to use. So I have a couple of them, actually. I might use this one instead because it has better block chance. But yeah, just lots of max life, 22 chaos res, so this would actually replace, like, say, my chest piece, so I could be more lenient with this. Another thing, too, for the chest piece is you really want life regen, so I've been trying to do a steel plate. An expert steel plate is kind of what I was going for, so this base right here, it has an implicit of doing 1.5 to 2.5% of life per second. This is actually very big when you... So, like, even just 1.5%, like, just for example, like, I have 100 regen on my guy right now. When I put that on, it goes up by 60. So that's nice. It's really not that much when you think of it like that. But if it's 2.5%, you get an extra percent. It's a lot. So another thing, too, is I was going to think about using this Rise of the Phoenix that I found. It gives you more maximum fire resistance. And the thing about the fire resistance being high would be that I would actually benefit from this armor wheel, and also 25% of armor applies to fire damage taken from hits. Basically, I'd be like almost immune to fire damage. Like you just like don't have to worry about it. So this shield's looking kind of juicy to use. I tried to Valet to get another socket, but it just didn't work out. But this also gives me 2.5% regen a second. So in combination with both of these, I get double my regen currently. So that's kind of what I'm hunting for right now is a expert steel plate. And then, yeah, I'll probably use this shield. I'm not sure yet. We'll see. Basically, the block chance is just horrid, so I don't really know if I want to do that. But yeah, so I think that covers all the gear, really. For jewels, jewels on my character right now, I'm just using like a lot of inflict bleed, magnitude of bleed, rage when hit. I've got, yeah, more inflict, and then rage on melee hit, and then I think I've got this really good one. Not that one. That one gives melee damage, stun threshold. Bleeding duration is really nice. Bleeding duration actually helps a shitload. And then I have this one, which is the best jewel I've found so far. It's got the armor, it's got life regenerate, empowered attacks deal 20% increased damage, so that's like big for our hammer. And then gain 2 rage when hit by an enemy. So we constantly have rage on hit and then rage when hit, so we've got a lot of generation for rage. So that's going to do it for the video today, guys. If you did find anything helpful, maybe consider liking and subscribing on the channel. It really helps me out. And if you guys have any questions at all, obviously comment in the YouTube comments. But I also stream on Twitch like a few times a week. So if you want to come over there and maybe ask some questions about the build, totally feel free. I'm starting to push into like T15 maps now, and I'm going to start doing some of the Pinnacle content. So yeah, feel free to come on over and stop by. I'd love to have you there. Yeah, I'm going to play this character for probably like little bit longer, but I may re-roll into another one. I kind of want to try more of the blasting builds. Like I've seen like a John Wick build, mercenary with the lightning strike thing, with everything bounces off terrain. It looks crazy. And then there's like Waggles doing like a stat stacker, which is with like Pillar of the Caged God, which looks crazy. And then like Fubgun, he's just like deleting the whole game right now playing PoE1, so I don't even know what's happening there. But anyway, I want to try one of something that blasts a little bit more, because Titan is okay, but it's in no means like excelling. They've really actually kind of gutted melee, but what can you do? Anyway, I'll see you guys in the next one.